Hello, and welcome to Freya's Tropical Garden, and a Happy New Year. Now here's what's coming up in today's episode.
I draw the results of the competition I ran in the last episode. There's part 1 of my visit to Trebah in Cornwall. And I talk you through how to grow superhot chilies from seed.
But first, here's how my garden's been getting on since the last episode.
Since I brought you my last garden update before Christmas, the UK has seen its fair share of bad weather, including storms that have brought strong winds and flooding, and even quite a bit of snow to the south coast. However, in my garden, this is the heaviest the snow got. We were fortunate enough to be spared any flooding, although we have had our fair share of heavy rain, and we've had a mild touch of frost, which for mid-January is quite late. The strong winds have blown down 2 of our fence panels, and my plastic greenhouse fell over. So on the whole, I consider myself very fortunate to have escaped most of this bad weather that the rest of the country's been getting, and I hope all your gardens are doing okay too. Of course, my garden certainly isn't looking as good as it was a couple of months ago. A few more things have died back to ground level, and because I haven't been very well over Christmas, I haven't had a chance to tidy it all up yet. However, even though it's not looking great right now, it has actually still been a very mild winter and things are doing very well. This arum lily was still looking green only a few days ago, and you can see that it was starting to get ready to flower. Of course, now we've had this light frost that has affected it, and as I believe we're expecting more cold weather to come, I'm not sure that it's going to recover. So it would have been a shame not to see this flower open. But you never know, we could get lucky again and escape the next cold burst. Again, a few days ago, even my Persian shield hadn't died back yet fully. However, all leaves have gone from this now. But if the mild winter continues, it may still reshoot from the ground. And even my 2 salvias haven't died back completely yet. Although they were looking much better than this a couple of days ago, it is very rare for me to still see green on them at this time of year. The leaves of my echium have had a little bit of frost damage, but this is still doing okay. And when I last tidied up the garden before Christmas, I didn't chop the canna patterns back because it was still green. However, you can see there is still some green within the plant, which really shows how little frost we've had this year. My musabasjus have even been trying to put out new leaves. And this nicotiana hasn't even died back at all, although the others have around my garden, and this isn't even in a particularly sheltered position, so I'm not sure why it's still going strong. The oleander is a lovely evergreen plant in the milder areas of the UK, and you can see that this is still looking really lush and green. And the leaves on my tree ferns are still producing this wonderful feathery foliage. Last year my Melianthus major died all the way back to ground level. However, this year it's still doing really well, so I'm hoping we'll get some flowers on it next year, as it only produces the flowers on last year's wood. The harsh frosts that we had last year really took their toll on my Washingtonia robustas. But so far, touch wood, they're looking much better this year, so hopefully we'll get a really good growth year from them next year. And I lost my pink cordylines last year in the frosts, but so far the one I've got this year is doing absolutely fine. I wasn't sure how the abutilon would do outside, so I took several cuttings as a backup, but so far no issues. And even my Chilean glory vine still looks green, which is a plant that I normally grow as an annual. And although my Brugmansia, which normally dies back over winter, isn't looking great, you can see that it's actually trying to grow some new leaves. This would normally have been cut back to ground level by now. But elsewhere in my garden I've got some growing in a pot in a much more sheltered position, and this is looking absolutely fantastic. Last year my Acacia dealbata was prevented from flowering properly due to the frosts, and I think the plant was actually quite lucky to make it through last winter. But as you can see, these flower buds are developing really nicely this year and are already starting to turn yellow. If this winter continues to be mild, then this is going to look absolutely stunning in a few weeks' time. My Korea has continued to flower throughout winter. I bought this plant earlier this year after visiting Trebah, and it is not disappointing. while the flower buds on my white camellia look like they're almost ready to open. They're much further along than the buds of my red camellia, which I think will be flowering much later this year. And the flowers are opening now on my winter flowering clematis. This is a variety called Winter's Beauty, and I've always looked forward to seeing this flower throughout the dreary winter months. And as my tropical garden in summer has become more established, I'm starting to look more at these winter plants, so the garden looks good all year. And some plants like this lobelia are starting to grow as though spring's here already. And some of my trees are already starting to form their leaf buds, including one of my acers. But if we do get frosts later, it's no worry, these plants will recover. For magnolias, it's very normal for them to start forming their flower buds at late summer to early autumn, and these develop over the winter period. It looks like I'm going to have more flowers on this than I've ever had before. And of course, I've got spring bulbs coming up all over the garden. These ones you might recognise from the video I did earlier on lasagna planting. Although, of course, we're still a good few months off actually having spring bulbs flowering, which will normally start around March time. Most of the plants in the grow tent are looking absolutely fine. This is the grow tent that I'm keeping at a frost-free temperature, although I haven't been able to keep a close eye on it over Christmas due to being unwell. You can see that the minimum temperature that's been recorded in there is 4.2 degrees C. However, my liver stoner has dried out too much. These normally like to be kept in quite a humid environment, and it's just got a bit neglected in the grow tent while I haven't been checking on things. So I've started by trimming off all the dead leaves and give it a chance to see if it's going to recover. And then I've put it under the shower head so that the leaves have a chance to get some humidity back as well. Showering the leaves is a great technique to use with lots of houseplants. I've also set up a smaller grow tent indoors now. This is going to be for starting my seeds, however I'm a bit late doing that due to being unwell. But I will be starting quite a few seeds over the next few weeks, which I'll give you updates on.
In my last episode, I ran a competition to win some seeds from my garden, and here is the draw coming up next.
In the last episode before Christmas, I brought you this competition to win some seeds that have been grown in my garden. If you missed this competition, then please keep an eye out on future episodes, because I run competitions several times throughout the year. And now there are additional opportunities to enter competitions by clicking the join button and becoming a Freya's Tropical Garden member. At the moment, competitions to win plants and seeds are only open to people who live in the UK due to postage restrictions. However, I am hoping that in the future, if this channel continues to grow and become successful, then I might have opportunities to offer competitions to people living abroad as well. For the competition today, there are 15 varieties of seeds that are up for grabs here. And this includes Canna and Nicotiana, Ipomoea, Ricinus, Cleo, Crocosmia, lilies, Chilean glory vines, and the magic dragon. So this time I asked people to enter by commenting on my previous video and asking them to confirm that they live in the UK. As you can see, we've had 8 entries. So thank you everyone for entering, and thank you all for your lovely comments as well. I'm just going to enlarge the spinner here to make sure that you can see it all clearly. And the very best of luck to everyone who's entered. Let's press spin. And congratulations to Julie Brace 8637. You have won 15 varieties of seeds from my garden. Please email Freya's Tropical Garden at gmail.com to give me your address.
Coming up next, I visited Trebah in Cornwall back in October, and this is part 1.
Trebah is a 26-acre subtropical garden situated in Cornwall near Glendurgan Garden and above the Helford River. Trebah was created by Charles Fox in 1831, who was the brother of Robert Weir Fox, who created Pengerrick Garden up the road. From 1939, the garden fell into decline until 1981, when Tony and Era Hibbert bought Trebah and spent 3 years restoring the garden. 4 miles of footpaths wind through the dazzling exotic planting, down to a private beach where you can stop for an ice cream and enjoy the stunning views. In spring, Trebah comes alive with a colourful array of 100-year-old rhododendrons, magnolias and camellias. In summer, the giant gunnera is looking at its best. In autumn, Hydrangea Valley casts clouds of china blue and soft white across Mallard Pond. In winter, the landscape is dominated by champion trees, including 8 trees which have been recorded as the tallest known in the UK, including a Trachycarpus measuring 14.7 metres and a Dicksonia antarctica with a girth of almost 2 metres. In the bamboozle, you can see 50 different varieties of bamboo with beautiful thick canes. In fact, the thickest cane is recorded at 38 centimetres in circumference. Of the many different varieties of bamboo being grown here, you'll find black canes, green canes, gold canes, yellow canes, and even some square canes. The water garden is built around a natural spring that flows downhill through a series of pools over Step Cascade and crisscrossed by a meandering path surrounded by lush planting. In the Stumperian Cascade you can see tree ferns dating back to 1880, as well as the black tree fern with fronds up to 3 metres long. The Chilean coombe features several exotic South American plants, including the monkey puzzle tree and a stunning Chilean lantern tree. The koi pool is home to koi carp up to 18 inches long and over 200 years old, as well as some sturgeon. Dogs are welcome if kept on a lead, and bowls of water are provided at various locations around the garden. It's advisable to give yourselves about 2 hours to walk around this garden. However, to appreciate it fully and relax and enjoy all its splendours, I would probably give it longer than that. But for now, I'm just going to take you through a few of the plants that you can see in this spectacular garden. Luma apiculata is also known as the Chilean myrtle. It's a species of flowering plant which is native to the central Andes between Argentina and Chile. It can grow up to 12 metres tall and grows well in most soil types. It prefers to grow in full sun and is hardy in most parts of the UK. Acacia baeliana purpurea is an evergreen shrub growing up to 6 metres in height, with fern-like silvery grey leaves tinted with purple. Like other varieties of acacia, in spring it produces clusters of small round yellow flowers. It prefers full sun and is hardy in milder areas of the UK. Acacia pravissima is also known as the Ovens wattle. It's native to Australia and is an evergreen shrub growing up to 5 metres tall with crowded triangular leaf-like phyllodes. It grows best in full sun and in a sheltered location and is hardy down to around -5 degrees. Schefflera taiwaniana has beautiful glossy dark green leaves. It's a very exotic mid-sized shrub and it prefers to grow in full sun or partial shade and is hardy in the milder areas of the UK, although it may need a little bit of extra frost protection when young. Schefflera digitata is also known as the umbrella tree and is native to New Zealand. It's an attractive and easy to grow foliage plant which can grow up to 2 metres tall. It prefers full sun or partial shade and is hardy to -8 degrees. Podophyllum spotty-dotty is a hybrid related to Podophyllum peltatum, which is native to North America. It produces beautiful umbrella-shaped leaves, making it a great foliage plant. It is considered toxic to cats and dogs, however I do grow it in my garden and I've never had an issue with my cats. The hosta Big Daddy is commonly known as the plantain lily and is a wonderful herbaceous perennial with large light blue-green leaves. It prefers to grow in part shade and is hardy throughout the UK, and it's considered one of the more slug-resistant varieties. Yucca rostrata is also known as the beaked yucca. It's a tree-like shrub which grows to around 3.5 metres tall. It prefers full sun and a sheltered position and is hardy through most of the UK. In autumn, it produces a flower spike 1.5 metres tall with attractive white flowers. Fargesia is a species of bamboo native to China, Vietnam and the Himalayas. It's a medium to small, mountain clumping bamboo variety eaten by giant pandas. Fargesia mccluriana is also known as the Tibetan clumping bamboo. It has strongly tessellate leaves and is considered one of the most cold-hardy of the genus. Also known as Berinda mccluriana, it requires full sun and regular watering and prefers rich soil. Drepanostachium casianum is also known as the purple jade bamboo. This is a compact, upright species with small leaves, originally from India. Culms are glossy green with crimson above the nodes. It will tolerate full sun if kept moist and does well indoors in pots. Fargesia lusciensis is a tall, clumping bamboo from China. It has beautiful, vibrant blue culms behind pink culm sheaths. It's very rare and highly ornamental. It grows up to 25 foot tall and prefers a sheltered, partial shade position. It's the least hardy of the Fargesias. Philostachys edulis, also known as the mozo bamboo, is the tallest growing and largest caned bamboo in Britain. It grows 30 centimetres a day in Trebah and can grow up to 60 foot tall. It spreads aggressively and is therefore considered invasive. Fargesia papyrifer is also known as the blue dragon bamboo. It's the least hardy of the Fargesias. It has an open habit with upright culms that are initially blue-grey and makes a superb tall specimen plant. It's a vigorous clumping form which is hardy in the UK and it prefers full sun or partial shade.
Now last year I brought you several videos going through how I grow my chilies, and I've put this all together into one chilli growing guide.
January or February is the best time of year to start your chilli seeds if you've got the right equipment. Especially a good grow light because chilies will need plenty of light when they start growing. However, if you don't have a good grow light, you can still grow chilies from seeds, but you'd do better to start your seeds around March or April time. And that way, by the time your seedlings require higher light levels, you'll be able to grow them outdoors. Now this video is going to take you through some of the key things you need to know if you're going to grow chilies yourself, from starting the seeds through to harvesting them later in the year. I grow a range of different chilies each year, including some super hot ones, and the advice here will work for all chilies regardless of which type of chili you're growing. If you're new to growing chilies, the first key piece of advice is to make sure you buy your seeds from somewhere reputable. Many chili growers have bought seeds on eBay before and found that the variety that they're growing isn't what was advertised. And this can especially be the case if you're trying to buy super hot chilies. You may find that you've actually bought a milder variety, and in some cases you might find that you're growing a completely different plant, for instance a tomato. But if you search for chili seeds online, you'll find many reputable retailers, such as the South Devon Chili Farm, World of Chilies, Sea Spring Seeds, and UK Chili Seeds, all of which I've used before in the past. And if you do want to start your seeds in January or February, then you can purchase a cheap grow light for around £20 or £30 on Amazon. And if you're growing super hot chili seeds, then they'll need a warm place to germinate, such as a propagator or even an airing cupboard. If you're new to growing seeds, then I recommend using a self-watering seed tray. Of course, any small pots or seed trays will do absolutely fine. However, with the self-watering seed tray, you can ensure that your soil is going to stay damp, but not overly soggy, which will be perfect for the seeds. The self-watering seed tray sits on top of the reservoir of water and uses a wick fabric to absorb that water so that the soil in the seed tray only takes up as much water as it needs. You need to place that wick to make sure that it's sitting into the reservoir of water, and then you can fill up your self-watering seed tray with water up to about halfway up the tray. Then all you need to do to keep your chilli seeds watered while they're in this tray is to just keep checking those water levels every week or two, just to make sure that there's still plenty of water in the bottom of your tray. It's best to use a good seed compost in your tray, although any compost will do the job. However, it will need to be firmed down in the seed tray to ensure good contact with that wick. And then I'll normally just add a little bit of extra water to the compost to make sure that it starts off damp as I'm sowing my seeds. If you're not using a self-watering seed tray to start your seeds, then another trick to help keep your seeds damp is to put your small pot of compost into a Ziploc bag and then seal that so that the moisture gets retained within the bag. So I have a few different varieties of seeds that I'm growing here, including some that I bought from retailers and others that I've collected and grown from my own chilies that I've grown in previous years. And I've written out labels to make sure I know which one's which. As you can see, I'm growing quite a few different varieties, and some of them can look very similar but have very different heat levels, so it's a good idea to know which ones you're growing. Unless, of course, you enjoy playing Russian roulette with your heat levels. So I'm going to start sowing my seeds, and I'm just using the label here to help make a little hole in the soil. And I'm going to put 3 of each variety per cell. This should be enough to ensure that I get at least 1 of each variety germinating. And if you do get more than 1, then you can either thin them out later or transplant all 3 of them into different pots. Seeds will normally germinate in about 7 to 14 days. However, they do all germinate at different rates, and especially the super hot ones might take a little bit longer, so it's important to be patient. Chilli seeds don't need light to germinate, but they do need to be in a warm place. And I'm using the lid of the seed tray to make sure I keep that moisture in. 7 days later, you see the first chilli seeds starting to poke through. They'll start with just their seed leaves. And at this point, you should avoid transplanting them because they're not strong enough yet. And also, they don't need any fertiliser at this stage. When they get their first true leaves through, like these ones, then you can transplant them. However, in a self-watering seed tray, you're much better to wait and let those roots develop a little bit more. Once you've got plug plants like this, then you can start transferring them into pots. One of the most common problems that chilli growers have while their plants are indoors is aphids. They may look like little green blobs on your plant, or you may see the white exoskeleton that's been shed by the aphid. The leaf may also look a bit sticky with the sap that they've been eating. However, they're easily dealt with. Simply get some damp cloth and wipe each leaf and just wipe the aphids away. There are bug sprays available that you can use to kill the aphids. However, they're not so reliable because they can hide underneath the leaf as well. And if you've got a lot of aphids, then sometimes the best thing to do is just rub the leaf under running water. And once you've washed away all those aphids, then the plant will be absolutely fine. Chilli plants grow at different rates. However, on the whole, I find that I'm repotting my chilli plants about once every 2 weeks until they reach their final pot size, which would be a 10-litre pot. If you're repotting outside, then just make sure that your chillies are out of the full sun, as this will help to reduce transplant shock.
So this chilli here is the Zimbabwe Black, and if I tip it upside down, you can see here that it has got quite a few roots showing on the outside. For me, that's good enough to pot up, so I'm going to be potting this up into the next size pot now. Now, for a lot of people, this wouldn't be enough roots to pot up yet. However, last year I found that when I waited a little bit longer, I didn't get such good results with my chillies. So as soon as I see these roots starting to form around the edge of the pot, that is the time when I decide to pot up.
If your chilli plant starts flowering before you've put it into its final pot size, it's best to remove those flowers. This way your plant can focus on putting on extra growth and roots rather than producing chillies. Although you may be keen to let it fruit early, it's much better to let your plant get bushier first, because then it will eventually produce more fruit. Water your chilies in frequently, usually about once every week. Let the soil dry out before you water them again. And once they start to produce flowers, you should give them a feed once every 2 weeks. You can use a general tomato fertiliser, although I prefer to use seaweed feed. Now, the hotter you like your chilies, the later you'll want to leave it before you harvest them. Although you'll find a few chilies coming through a bit earlier, usually the typical harvest time will be around October. However, it's advisable to keep harvesting the chilies as they develop so that it encourages new chilies to grow. Some chilies may also be grown more for their flavour, in which case you might want to try a few and just pick the ideal time for harvesting the variety that you're growing. Most chili growers grow their plants as annuals and start again from seed the following year. As the temperatures start to drop, the leaves will start to become more discoloured, and at this point the plant will be very hard to save. So if you are planning to overwinter them indoors, it's best to pick healthy plants. Even just showing these small brown dots, this plant isn't at its optimum health. For seeds to be viable, you need to wait until the chilies have turned bright red. Although not all varieties of chilies do go red, so it's a good idea to know what variety of chili you're growing, so that you can harvest your seeds at the optimum time. Generally, seeds harvested too early may look slightly translucent in colour. Of course, it's a good idea to make sure that you're wearing gloves when you're handling chili seeds, or no matter how well you wash your hands afterwards, your eyes will be stinging when you rub them. Use a paper towel to clean the chili seeds and then leave them on a paper towel to dry for a couple of weeks, after which you can store them in a paper bag and make sure you keep them in a dry environment.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Freya's Tropical Garden, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
If you're enjoying the content of Freya's Tropical Garden, then please help this channel grow by subscribing. Every new subscriber is appreciated, and by turning on notifications to my videos, you can also make sure that you don't miss any episodes in future. You can also follow me on social media, where I'll release links to my latest videos, as well as share my flower of the day. You can follow me on X, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, or join my Facebook group to engage in discussions and share your own photos. Freya's Tropical Garden webpage also has links to my videos and helpful advice. And now, in order to support the continued growth of this channel, there is an option of becoming a member, which will give you access to a private Facebook group where I'll be running monthly competitions exclusively for members, as well as additional exclusive content. And as always, I welcome your feedback in the comments below.